Hello, good crowd. We are so excited. We've got Donnetta Johnson here. She's the founder of an extraordinary organization, and she has really a special story. You want to hear this. But she's the founder of My Son, Your Daughter, the Jonah Johnson Youth Scholarship Fund. So stick around. You don't want to miss this.
Welcome to the Your Mark on the World show with your champion of social good, Devin D. Thorpe.
Please support the sponsors who made this episode possible, including Johnson & Johnson's Caring Crowd and GoodCrowd.school. Donnetta, welcome to the show.
Hi, Devin. How are you?
We're thrilled to have you here on the show, and thank you so much for taking the time. You've got a special story, and we are eager to hear it. You've been working in the community doing wonderful things throughout your life and career, but in 2009, I think you suffered a tragedy that really redefined your whole life. Can you tell us about what happened?
Absolutely. In 2009, I lost my teenage son, Jonah. He died by suicide. He had been suffering through depression, and we were working through his depression. He was in therapy and he was on medication. And to be honest with you, his father had suffered suffers through depression since his teenage years. And my older son has also had bouts with depression. So I thought this was entirely, something that we would be dealing with as a family, and that we would work our way through, and that we would ultimately be successful. But we were not, because my son died, and it devastated our lives. It devastated our family. No one has the facility or the ability to understand when a healthy, brilliant, smiling, extremely popular kid, suddenly dies when you didn't even understand that it was a deadly situation that you were dealing with.
Yeah. Difficult for everyone, but probably most difficult for a mother in that circumstance. So one of the things you've done to cope is to create the My Son, Your Daughter, the Jonah Johnson Scholarship Fund. Tell us a little bit about how that works, and has it served as a catharsis for you in some way?
In a way, yes. In a way, no. At the time, I was just, I don't even have words. I was shattered. And I couldn't figure out how this happened, to my family. I had an impression about suicide and depression that was entirely inaccurate. And, I'm an engaged parent. I was very, very close with my son. We had lots of fun together. We had lots of conversations. I thought that I was doing everything that I could to help him with his illness. But as it turns out, I knew nothing. And even the professionals who were advising me actually knew nothing. And so I realized, if this could happen to my son, it could happen to your daughter. And I really had a responsibility to honor Jonah, to not let his illness and our response to his illness, just go unanswered in the community. And so I started the scholarship fund, and we had that same year in 2019, my school had launched the Hillsborough Music Festival. And it was an opportunity to celebrate the arts and to celebrate community and to build social fabric and to celebrate life. And so the following year, it was just months after this occurred, because Jonah died at the end of the year, I decided to use that platform to raise awareness about suicide, and to, just take baby steps toward figuring out how to prevent suicide, particularly for youth, because it's so tricky when it comes to youth, because they're impulsive. They're seemed always to be depressed anyway. They're going through hormonal changes. They're dramatic. And so it's really very difficult to understand what's the difference between that and someone who is actually ill, and needs to, get more attention?
Yeah.
Is it cathartic? In a way, yes, but in a way, no, because I'm always doing like the most difficult work, the most painful work for myself personally. I'm always putting myself in that spot to just be entirely uncomfortable, entirely devastated. But I feel like this is something I need to do because I don't want another family, if we can prevent it, to have to experience this, because it's entirely preventable. And we have the research, we have the science. There are incredible programs out there. We just have to remove the stigma, remove the ignorance. It's 2019. There's just no reason why there should be this level of denial and stigma and ignorance related to an illness that we can actually, resolve.
Yeah. You talk about what you didn't know, what you didn't understand, even though you were a wonderful mother. What are the things that you've learned that are most important, that you most frequently share with other parents to help them prevent this from happening?
Right. So I was just having a conversation with a parent, someone who's helping us with the music festival a couple of hours ago. And he mentioned that he's concerned about his son because of everything out that's going on that's affecting children with social media and all the pressures. And it is a really tough time to be a kid, admittedly. But I was trying to explain to him, from my perspective, the difference. Human beings, our greatest will is the will to live. And so throughout history, we've gone through some stuff. We've been through wars, through famine, through all sorts of devastating situations that don't lead us to take our own lives. And so the difference is the difference is when there's underlying illness regarding depression that will leave a person weakened and vulnerable. So there's some sort of glitch that takes place in the brain that will allow a normal trigger to make that person do something extremely devastating. So it's not the same. Kids go through all sorts of tricky situations, but we usually survive. The difference is if there's an underlying condition of depression, and that's what we really need to understand. And it's so challenging for teenagers because they're depressed all the time. They're moody. I mean, it's a part of being a teenager. So how do you distinguish that usual moodiness from like an underlying illness? And that's what we need to be educated about. There are clear and definite signs. And if we're able to treat this and pay attention to this and empathize with this, we can do much better to moving that teenager through and getting them to live longer, because as they live longer, they'll become more resilient and they will, develop more tools and they'll grow up. And that's not to say they're not always going to be ill. Some of them will go through depression or a mental health crisis just as a temporary thing as they're growing. Some of them will be dealing with it all of their lives. But just like we teach children in school, when you smell smoke, drop, stop, drop, and roll, we can also teach teenagers, when you have this feeling, or if your brain is saying, I don't feel like I should be here, I'm such a burden, my life is not worth living, let me think about, I've learned about this, what should I do next? There have been some trainings that have been extremely effective. My oldest son was telling me about how he was in college and he remembered his DARE training. I don't know if you are familiar, it's an anti-drug campaign.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, he's not a goody two-shoes or anything, but when he was offered, drugs that he didn't want to participate in, he remembered that training. And so it doesn't work for everyone, but it certainly works for a lot of kids. And there's mental health first aid training that first responders can be trained in so that we can identify children and people in our community and be positioned to help them through a crisis.
Yeah. What are the what do you do with the money you raise for the My Son, Your Daughter, the Jonah Johnson Scholarship Fund?
All right. Well, first of all, we're trying to create a strong foundation. The goal of the monies are resiliency training. So we want to, myself and my partner just got trained in mental health first aid. All right. So this is a national program, and it's an 8-hour course to start off with. And it teaches you, again, how to understand when a child is in crisis versus what kids are ordinarily going through, and how to teach them to be more resilient. So we want to develop these programs that already exist and really offer them to school systems, to roll them out across every district as early as 3rd grade, I think. You know, kids need to be trained about what it's like to not feel okay, and how to know that not feeling okay is perfectly okay. It's fine. You can talk about it. You can, it's something that you will get through. You shouldn't be told to be strong or stop crying or, you know, hide your feelings, or, you know, we need to understand it's okay. And it's just something as a human we go through. So we want to find resiliency training, whether it's mental health first aid or scholarships for the arts, because we already know that arts programming is essential for mental health. So where these programs are being cut, we want to make sure that those programs are continued to be funded. Yeah. We also want to provide opportunities for kids who don't necessarily see a future to have scholarships, academic scholarships, so that they can continue their education. So to summarize, mental health first training, resiliency programming, arts funding, and arts scholarships.
Oh, that's great. Well, Donnetta, you raised some money for this effort on Caring Crowd. Tell us a little bit about your experience using Caring Crowd.
Caring Crowd was an amazing platform. It really fell out of the sky like a gift from the gods. My future daughter-in-law works at Johnson & Johnson. As a matter of fact, she's getting married this weekend to my son. And
congratulations.
Thank you. And she introduced the foundation to this program. And at our last year's fundraiser, the Hillsborough Music Festival, we were able to use that platform, and they were able to match the donations of the money that we raised. And so that was tremendous.
Oh, wow. Wow. So how much did you raise total on the platform?
On the platform, we were able to raise $3,000.
That's great. That's great.
Yes.
Well, Donnetta, as you look back on this work, you've been doing it now for a decade. You started in 2009, really just after your son died. And what are you most proud of having accomplished over this time?
I think if we make one person, one family feel less alone as they struggle through depression, mental illness, if we make them understand that they are not alone, there are resources, there are caring people, there are people who are willing to hold their hand as they go through a crisis, or be with them after they go through a crisis. If one child understands that their life is worth living, and that through the work that we do, that there are actual solutions, I will be very, very proud of that work. And people have come to me and told me that just the fact that I'm using my story to shine a light on mental health, suicide prevention, that I'm not ashamed of what happened to my son. My son was sick. My son did not appear to be sick at all, which is very tricky, but my son was in fact ill. The fact that I'm telling his story makes them feel that there's an answer, there's a way forward. That's what I'm most proud of.
As you reflect now, you've learned so much. What's the most important lesson you've learned?
Depression is deadly. Depression can be deadly. It is not to be trifled with. It is not a character flaw. It is not something you just get over, like wake up on the other side of the bed. It is an illness, and it needs care and attention like cancer would.
Yeah, that's such an important message. Thank you. Well, Donnetta, what is your superpower?
My superpower is to stand in a space of discomfort, to be really uncomfortable and to do it anyway.
Oh, that is a powerful superpower. That is powerful. Boy, I wish I had more of that. Well, Donnetta, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. We really appreciate you sharing your really sacred story with us. Before you go, would you take just a minute and tell people how they can learn more about the My Son, Your Daughter, the Jonah Johnson Scholarship Fund?
Yes, they're welcome to go to our website. It's mysonyourdaughter.org. There are opportunities to donate to the fund. We have a GoFundMe campaign going. We have the Hillsborough Music Festival going on this very weekend. It's going to be a tremendous party. We call it a party with a purpose. We've joined with the Township of Hillsborough, which I'm so incredibly proud of my town, because they recognize that the mental health of our children and the community is of supreme importance. And they've allowed us to collaborate to create this incredible party, but with a purpose. And we're going to raise lots of awareness. We're going to hear some great bands. We're going to eat some great food, and we're going to have a great time and do good in our community.
Oh, fantastic. Well, again, Donnetta, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. And we wish you every success in saving the lives of more people.
Thank you, Devin.
All righty. Let's do some good.
At Caring Crowd, we believe everyone has the power to make a difference. Through our crowdfunding platform for community health, we empower passionate people to drive real change. Whether you work for a nonprofit organization, volunteer, or want to get involved for the first time, you can post a campaign on Caring Crowd. Join us, because caring is where change begins.
At GoodCrowd.school, 5% of what you pay to learn how to make a difference goes to nonprofits working to eradicate extreme poverty, improve global health, and reverse climate change by 2045. So when you take a course to learn how to change the world, you do change the world. Get started at GoodCrowd.school today. Thanks for tuning in to the Your Mark on the World show, the Social Impact Podcast. Please subscribe via YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or Spotify.